you're a fan of heavy metal firearms and love to express your love for God, country, and company, then look no further than the M1000 Classic. The original design for the M1000 precision rifle goes back hundreds of years, practically unchanged since DRG was first founded by Carl S. Stonesman. High damage, respectable rate of fire, and that ping. Oh, that sweet, sweet ping. A prime example of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So grab yourself one and join the good fight against the bug menace of Hussars today. What's up guys, Jay here and welcome back to the channel. We're going back to tackling all of the weapons of the game and going through their overall styles and overclocks so that you can find out if you want to add them to your build. Now we have gone through a lot of the weapons so far and we are actually almost done, at least the primary weapons. So if there is another weapon that you want to see covered, I have probably already done it, so make sure you check out the playlist with all of these weapon workshop videos for whichever one you want to see. In any event, we are rounding out the Scout's weapons as well as being taken back in time with his homage to the World War II era weaponry, the M1000 Classic semi-auto rifle. So if you guys are ready, let's go through the M1000 and talk about its tricks, stats, and overclocks so you can see if it's the primary weapon to add to your build. By the way, if you like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss another upload. It really helps me out a lot.
Yeah, I don't so much scout as make this operation possible.
So first, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the overclocks and stats for the M1000 itself, we need to understand exactly how this weapon functions and what it does. The M1000 Classic is a semi-automatic rifle that is one of the few weapons to boast an alternate firing mode. Tapping the trigger normally will simply fire a shot like normal. However, holding down the fire button will cause the weapon to enter focus mode. In this state, bullets fired have perfect accuracy and deal double damage, but consume 2 rounds per shot. Focus mode requires a brief charging state indicated by the crosshair rotating. While focus mode is active, the screen zooms in slightly to assist with aiming. Focus mode shots can be cancelled by reloading, swapping equipment, or swinging the pickaxe. So the M1000 is in a very interesting position, not just in the Scout's arsenal, but in the entire weapon roster as a whole. The M1000 functions very uniquely compared to every other weapon in the game, and for lack of a better comparison, it's the closest thing the game has to a sniper rifle at the current point. Now this has led the M1000 to be a bit of a polarizing weapon in the DRG community. Most people either love it or completely despise it and claim that it is the worst gun in the game. I personally think it's a far cry to say that it is the worst gun in the game, especially since it's capable of putting out some serious damage at some of the longest ranges in the game. However, I do think that in terms of going from one weapon to another, it can be a little jarring to adjust. The Deep Core Assault Rifle for the Scout is, in my opinion, one of the best in the game for new players to adapt to. It's simple, balanced, easy to use, and fits very well with his gameplay style for Deep Rock Galactic. The M1000, on the other hand, functions almost the complete opposite. Its single-shot nature and naturally smaller ammo pool can be a hard adjustment for players who are used to spraying into hordes with the Deep Core. However, one thing it does do very well is teach you one of the Scout's primary roles in the game of being the one who handles the high-value targets. The M1000 is by far the best tool the Scout has at achieving this, and if you can get used to its different handling style, you will certainly see the chunks of health fly off of enemies.
Keep them shites off me! I'll keep the team alive!
Now that that's out of the way, it's time to go over the overclocks themselves. As of Season 4, the M1000 has 6 overclocks with the standard split for 2 of each category. Next, as always, we'll go through each of them and talk about what they do and how you can utilize them to the most effectiveness. So with that, let's start with the clean overclocks, and the first one is one of the M1000's most famous with the hover clock. The description reads, your movement slows down for a few seconds while using focus mode in the air. So for clean overclocks, this one is actually very unique and does something very interesting for the M1000. In terms of stat changes, there isn't anything inherently changed about the weapon except it gets the hovering ability. As for what the hover ability does, well, whenever focus mode is used mid-air, the player's movement gradually slows down and lasts for a short period of time. The slowdown can get refreshed by killing or by touching the ground. So in essence, you can activate a Max Payne style bullet time mode by focusing your shots in mid-air, making you into a floating sniper turret able to pick things off from the air. Now, while this is what the overclock says itself, in practice, it seems to me that it triggers just whenever you shoot a normal shot as well. I'm not sure if this is a glitch or if it's just not worded properly, but I suppose I can't really complain about that. Now, while this overclock is certainly fun to use and meme around with, in terms of bringing this on higher hazard missions, I think there are probably better options for you to bring. Still, it's crazy fun to be able to float around the air and do trick shots, and if that's what you're into, then go for it. The next clean overclock we have is minimal clips. This one reads, increases clip capacity and speed up reloads by getting rid of dead weight on the clips. Now I'm sure I am a broken record at this point in the series, but this is the obligatory better ammo clean overclock. In terms of numbers, it increases your clip size by 2 and reduces your reload time by 0.2 seconds. I really do wish there was more for me to talk about when it comes to these kinds of overclocks, but it's just the same as all the other ones that we've seen so far. It's never a bad idea to have this one, and it will never hurt you just by giving you more shots and less downtime in between shots. Moving over to the balanced overclocks, first we have the active stability system. This one reads, focus faster and without slowing down, but all of that fancy tech limits how quickly you can reload. So this is a very interesting option for those of you who like to use focus mode a lot, but don't like the heavy slowdown that happens when you do use focus. Going through the numbers, it gives plus 70% to focus mode movement speed and plus 19% to the actual focus speed. Not sure why they didn't just do it even 20%, especially since it says 20% in the other version. But anyway, this is compensated by an increase to a reload time increase by 0.5 seconds. So this one is kind of hard to figure out in terms of how to exactly use it. It wants you to use focus mode more than usual with the increased speed. However, in my experience, the way I typically use the M1000 is to use the normal shots to deal with the smaller threats and then save the focus shots to deal with the tougher enemies. And yet this wants you to use the focus shots more for swarm controls since you are more mobile when you use it. So trying to adapt to using the focus mode more often to gain the most value out of this can be a little tricky. If you are using this one, I would say probably bring ammo increasing mods like expanded ammo bags in tier 1 since you will be burning through ammo twice as fast much more often. The second balanced overclock we have is Hipster. The description is a mouthful and says, a less powerful round altogether with a rebalancing of weight distribution, enlarged vents, and a reshaped grip results in a rifle that is more controllable when hip firing in quick succession, but at the cost of pure damage output. As an added bonus, you can carry more of the new ammunition. So this overclock has a lot of features and layers to it. Going through all of the stat changes, it gives you plus 88 to your maximum ammo reserves, plus 2 to your rate of fire, a 50% reduction to your recoil, and a 10% reduction to spread per shot. So basically, the weapon's blue. All of this is countered by a big hit to your overall damage by 17. So although this overclock hits your damage pretty hard, this is still my personal go-to overclock for the M1000. Even with the less damage, you can still do good damage numbers, and if you're still struggling, then you can just take the increased caliber rounds in tier 1 to help offset the damage somewhat. This overclock, in my opinion, can help a lot of people adjust to the issues that many people have with the M1000's playstyle. It makes the ammo less scarce and the rate of fire more aggressive and the recoil easier to control. It's almost like a supercharged version of the minimal clips that we talked about earlier, but with an actual drawback that is still pretty easy to manage. If you have this overclock and are on the fence about using the M1000, try it out and see if it helps change your mindset. Next up, it's time to go over the unstable overclocks. The first one for the M1000 is the electrocuting focus shots. The description reads, embedded capacitors in a copper core carry the electric charge from the EM coils used for focus shots and will electrocute the targets at the cost of a reduced focus shot damage bonus. So this is for those of you who want to add a little bit of shocking damage to your focus shots. Going over the numbers, it gives you the electric focus shots buff at the cost of minus 25% to focus shot damage. So this is certainly a very interesting option, as it is the only overclock for the M1000 that has any kind of elemental functionality. The fact that it applies shock to the bugs can be very useful since it can not only synergize with other aspects of the Scout's arsenal, but the arsenal of his allies as well. This is not a bad option to run in a team composition surrounding elemental effects. However, you do need to make sure that you have several aspects of your team setup that can capitalize on it, since your focus shots are not going to be doing nearly as much damage. The only real problem I have with this overclock is that it does nothing to your normal shots. If it had some sort of effect where your normal shots did extra damage to shocked enemies or even just elemental debuffed enemies in general, then that would be interesting. Basically, if you're okay with not doing as much damage with your focus shots and instead debuffing and shocking enemies with them, then this overclock is perfect for you. The final unstable overclock option is the supercooling chamber. This one reads, take the M1000's focus mode to the extreme by supercooling the rounds before firing to improve their acceleration through the coils, but the extra coolant in the clips limits how much ammo you can bring. So this is for when you want to go all in with the focus shot damage and just completely delete something with a ton of damage. Going through the numbers, it increases your focus shot damage by 150%, making them do crazy damage. Also, for some reason it doesn't show up on the stat screen, but it also multiplies your weak spot damage by a total of 3. However, this comes at a huge cost with minus 30 to your maximum ammo reserves, minus 2 to your clip size, minus 40% to your focus speed, and lastly minus 30% to your focus mode movement speed. So as I said, this is the overclock for when you want to go for very big game hunting. This is not one that you want to bring for swarm control or mass bug culling. This is for things like elimination and industrial sabotage missions, where you want to take out one really big thing. While this overclock is capable of dealing ridiculous amounts of damage, the fact that your ammo takes a huge hit can make this one really hard to use, especially if you are just starting off. As such, I would recommend using this only in instances I mentioned earlier with things like dreadnoughts and boss missions. That being said, in those situations, it is certainly extremely effective.
The truth is out there. So is the gold.
So with all of these overclocks a bit more explained, hopefully you have a bit of a better idea of how to use the M1000. As a bit of a hot take, it's probably my new favorite primary weapon to use for the Scout after getting material for this video. It has a sense of elegance and effectiveness that is unlike many of the other weapons in the game, and the overclocks it has can really let you build it out in any way you want. You can be a flying dwarf with the hoverclock, a speedy focus junkie with the active stability system, or have the DRG equivalent of a 50 cal sniper rifle with the supercooling chamber. No matter which way you set it up, it's clear that the M1000 is the Scout's best primary weapon. Well, that covers the M1000 and the overclocks it has access to and how you can use them to great effect. Now you can decide if the DRG version of the M1 Garand is the right primary weapon for your build. If you guys like this and want to see more, make sure you check out the playlist with all of the weapon guides so you could see the one that I've done for your favorite weapon. Anyway, I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, please be sure to like and subscribe because it tells me what types of videos you guys want to see. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.